Hey, Noah here. Do you want to hear the story of Noah's Ark? Well, let's get into it. Long ago, in the time of the greatest flood that the world has ever seen, there was a man named Noah who lived with his wife, 3 sons and their wives, and many animals. They all lived together in a big family compound outside the city of Urfa, in what is today's southeastern Turkey. In fact, it's believed that Noah's exact hometown was this place called Zidon. That name sounds familiar, doesn't it? It should, because it's actually where the biblical figure Utnapishtim is from. Utnapishtim is the one who survived the great flood in the Epic of Gilgamesh, which we discussed in a previous episode. And the story of Noah's Ark has several similarities with that story, which makes sense, since they would have been passed down for hundreds of years through stories and folktales before being written down by someone like Gilgamesh or maybe someone else. We don't really know. Anyway, Noah was a very righteous man, but everybody else was doing evil in those days. God saw this, and he was very sad. He was sad because humans had strayed from him and were not listening to him anymore. In fact, people had gotten so bad that God decided that he was going to wipe them all out, except for Noah and his family and some animals, of course. And that's when he began to make it rain. Now, up until this point, the earth had known nothing but dry land. There had never been an ocean on the planet. But when God unleashed his fury, the heavens opened up and torrential rains poured over the face of the earth for 40 days and 40 nights. This was a disaster of unimaginable proportions. Rivers overflowed, dams broke, rain poured. Even the oceans weren't safe from this dead. Every single day, massive amounts of water fell upon the face of the earth. And during this time, waves crashed violently against the mountains and the rains beat down relentlessly. The torrents did not abate. Neither did the rains cease. All the fountains of the great deep burst forth, and everything living and moving. Noah had brought into the ark both beast and cattle, birds and creeping things all together with their herds. All that were with Noah in the ark, these perished. That is to say, every living thing, whatever that was on the earth, all perished. So all flesh died, whether on dry land or in the seas or in the rivers. Everything that had life in it perished. Thus he wiped out all life that had been made, both man and beast and birds, all from the face of the ground. Only Noah was left, and those that were with him in the ark. Genesis 7, verses 12, 13, 18, 21. In order to understand just how devastating these rains were, we need to remember that in the ancient Near East, flooding wasn't anything new or strange. In fact, flooding of the Tigris and Euphrates rivers was such an accepted fact of life that it even had its own god, a deity named Shala, who personified the rising waters that inundated the fields each year. The annual floods were so important, in fact, that people would travel miles to see the inundation of the rivers, just as people today travel to see the St. Lawrence Seaway opened each spring. For many people, the opening of the seaway is a sign that winter is finally over and that warmer weather is coming. In the same way, the annual flooding of the rivers in the Fertile Crescent was celebrated because it meant that the soil of the region would be enriched and the land would be ready to plant crops for the year. You could even say that without the flooding, there would be no food. And so when the waters receded, people would rejoice. But what happened to Noah and his family was not a blessing, it was a curse. The rains lasted for 150 days, and if that isn't long enough for you, then consider that in those days people didn't have indoor plumbing. They didn't have heating systems, they didn't have air conditioning, they couldn't watch TV or movies or surf the internet. If you were stuck inside for 150 days, you would probably go crazy. But Noah and his family had to endure, because God told them that after 150 days the rains would stop and they would finally be able to leave the safety of the ark. And so while the rain continued to pound against the roof of the ark, Noah sent out a raven, and then later a dove to see if the waters had receded. But each time the birds returned because the waters hadn't gone down yet. Finally, a second dove that Noah sent out came back with an olive leaf in its mouth, which symbolized that the rains had stopped and dry land was once again visible above the water. Then Noah waited another 40 days, and this time he sent the dove out again, and it didn't come back. At last, after spending a total of 370 days in the ark, Noah and his family could finally leave. Upon emerging from the ark, Noah built an altar and made offerings of every clean animal and of every clean bird. This sacrifice was both a thank you to God for saving him and his family, and also an apology for the rest of humanity, whose sin had caused so much destruction. God smelled the sweet savor of the offering, and he promised to never again destroy the earth by flood. As a token of his promise, God placed a rainbow in the clouds and declared that whenever Noah saw the rainbow, he would remember that God had finished his work with the earth. He would never again destroy all life with a flood. Noah lived after the flood up until the age of 950 years, and if that sounds unbelievable, then consider that other patriarchs in the Bible lived just as long, like Methuselah, who lived to be 969 years old. Adam, Noah's father, lived to be 930 years old, and his grandfather, Enoch, lived to be 365 years old. Now, there is no scientific evidence to support these claims. However, there are legends that mention some of these same individuals in similar ages. For instance, the Sumerian king list says that Noah lived to be 930 years old, and that his grandfather, Enoch, lived for 365 years. These legends are usually dismissed by scientists because they cannot be proven, but perhaps one day, new evidence will be found to prove the existence of these ancient texts, and with them the truth of the Bible's stories. Until then, however, these stories remain unproven, though they continue to inspire millions of people around the world. The story of Noah's Ark is a powerful reminder to always do the right thing and to have faith in God. Despite the evil that surrounded him, Noah chose to live a righteous life, and because of his faith, he was saved from the great flood. But the story is also a warning to never give up hope, no matter how bad things may seem. When the rains came, Noah and his family huddled together in the ark and waited patiently for the storm to pass. And it was only after 370 days that they were finally able to emerge from the ark and start their lives anew. Today, Noah's story continues to inspire people to take action in the face of adversity. His example teaches us that no matter what challenges we may face in our lives, we can overcome them if we have faith and determination. The story of Noah's Ark is a story of hope. It tells us that even after the greatest disaster, life can go on, and that we can always start fresh if we believe in ourselves. So the next time you feel like giving up, remember the story of Noah and his family. Remember that no matter how dark things may seem, there is always light at the end of the tunnel. Just like Noah and his family, we can endure anything if we have faith and determination. If you enjoyed this video, then please hit the thumbs up button and subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you in the next one.